Good day, my friends. Here we are sitting at the kitchen table again, talking with one another of what it means to faithfully follow Jesus in the days that we're in. I have a word of hope today that I trust will bring you strength and courage as we face these days together. We've been asking this question, what's possible now? A question we'll be asking all the more as our leaders decide how, when, and what to open back up in our culture. And I've suggested that we make this decision as individuals or families for ourselves. That we would take a deep breath, ignore the deafening noise that we should just go back to doing everything like we did before, and decide for ourselves what it is we want to add back into our life again, or maybe what we want to keep out of our lives, or maybe something new that we've experienced during these days of social distance restrictions. I hope you've been thinking about that and making some plans for what you're going to do. And I've got some suggestions for you. Here's the one today. It's this, that our homes are the primary setting for our spiritual growth. In these days, we've had to do a lot of things from our homes that we haven't normally done very much. Work, kids going to school, attend worship. And I know it's been hard, and we're ready for some of that to certainly be over. I've talked with some parents who says it's been really hard to try to juggle everything. Work from home, having the kids go to school from home, have to be attentive to the kids at home, and we're ready for that to be over. But might there be something that we'd like to keep from this? And it's that. The primary setting for our spiritual growth as individuals, as families, and for our children to learn about Jesus is our homes. Because even if we're very active in going to the church building for its activities, it's a secondary setting in our lives. And if we rely on what happens at the church building to be the primary way that we grow spiritually, our kids learn about Jesus, it's going to more often lead to what I'd call a secondary faith or a Sunday-only faith. But if it happens primarily in our homes, then it's more likely a primary faith. We see this in the early days of the disciples of Jesus trying to figure out what's possible now, how to live out the faith after Jesus had rose from the dead and ascended to heaven. In Acts chapter 2, beginning at verse 42, we see a description of some of the things they were doing. And in verse 46 it says this, every day they continued to meet together in the temple courts. They broke bread in their homes and ate together with glad and sincere hearts. They did go to church to worship at the temple, but as you read through those accounts in the first chapters of Acts, you see that really it was their homes that was the primary setting for living out what it means to follow Jesus. And that's as it should be. This is the way it was in the home that I grew up in. My parents made sure we were very active in church, going to the church building, worship, Sunday school, vacation Bible school, youth group, and so forth. But it was in our home that we primarily learned the faith, around the dining room table, where we'd have family devotions after dinner. And we'd read a Bible verse and hear a devotion and pray. I learned how to pray out loud in a spontaneous way from my parents around the table. And in conversations in our home and watching my parents as they practiced their own faith in their personal devotions in our home. In this way, faith became a primary thing in my life, not a secondary, only a church thing. Parents, I want to encourage you to maybe keep this part of these restrictions as we move forward. To practice and to see that your home and what happens in your home is the primary setting for spiritual growth, for us all, and for our families and for our children. Could it be that God would bring this great thing out of these difficult times? May this be a hope to you today, and may you begin to think about continuing this practice of your home being the primary setting for spiritual growth for you and your family.